Welcome back, everybody. Derek Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Well, some of you have been asking about what is aquaculture and what are you growing with that business. And so here it is in a nutshell. Uh, it's a very simple business. It's farming. It's uh, water-based farming. Like there are fisheries, a lot of you see farm-raised salmon, farm-raised tilapia. Well, instead of raising fish, my aquaculture will be raising in high demand shrimp and prawns right here locally, and we're modeling this particular business after one that's a very big one in Southern California and very successful. And what makes it very interesting, all of their product is distributed only in the commercial restaurant industry, and they are of the demand in that for prawns and shrimp. They are only 0.5% of the incoming product. Uh, and so that tells you that there's a lot of product coming in from overseas and also from out of California, whether it be Louisiana, the shrimp boats in our southern states and the Gulf waters, or from overseas in Asia. And that's where we see a lot of frozen shrimp come from Asia. And so the advantage of having this aquaculture business, number one, it is self-sustaining, meaning that once we get to a certain point, what we do, uh, a part of the building uh, is roped off for a breeding area for shrimp to uh, lay their eggs, and then once those eggs are laid, then they go back into the regular harvest. But there is a breeding room because one of the interesting things that a lot of people don't know is that shrimp only they only breed at night. They don't breed during the day. It has to be the dark at night. So pretty much like a lot of people's, they don't want the lights on in the room. So shrimp are the same thing. And um, a female shrimp can lay 10,000 to 20,000 eggs in one session. And so that's a tremendous amount of eggs. And considering that our stock, we would buy stock from out of California, and it's fully approved for the aquaculture. And this stock would come in from the Gulf states. It's a white shrimp, and it would be grown here. And so some of the advantages of that is number one, the freshness of live shrimp versus frozen shrimp. If you've ever tasted a live prawn or a live shrimp, such as you go over a Ranch Market 99, there's a lot of live shrimp there, or in a lot of Chinatowns. There were several aquarium or seafood outlets in the Oakland Chinatown, and right now I can only think of one that's still surviving uh, that had live shrimp, and I would go there and buy live shrimp because the taste is so much better than the frozen shrimp. Yes, it does cost more, but then that's the great thing about being able to be having a self-sustaining business where um, the inventory replaces itself. And the nice thing about this particular type of harvest is that you can start harvesting as little as 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and as long as 120 days. That's a maximum, and that you're growing a huge prawn there at that point. And you're going to be getting maximum dollars for that. And there's a huge demand. And so um, you're going to have to do some marketing, which we've already done some around the Bay Area, and we find that there is a very, very uh, great opportunity in front of us, and there's room for a lot of people to come along here in the Bay Area. And the Bay Area has the nice temperatures, which makes it easier so that energy costs for keeping the temperature correct in the growing ponds, growing tanks, the nurseries, and the breeding um, rooms, you have to keep a certain temperatures, and they vary. And so uh, one of the nice things that I'm incorporating into the system, it is a very low cost energy system that keeps all the water temperatures very stable, and also it doesn't harm the inventory in any way, and it's a recirculating system, and it recirculates hot water at a certain temperature to maintain a certain temperature in these grow out ponds. And in a best case scenario, you would have approximately 12 uh, 12 to 15 grow out ponds. But we're not starting that big yet, because a grow out pond is 1 acre foot of water. And that 1 acre foot of water, um, let's see, I had the number written down here for the acre feet of water. It's a substantial amount of water. Let's see, where did I put that? I had it written down, but I'll find it. But it's it's a lot of water, and it's 1 foot of water across 1 acre. How many gallons? And it's if I remember off the top of my head, 351,000 gallons and some change. But it's a lot, and so that's the size of the grow out ponds that will be in these businesses. They're about 4 feet deep. The water level's 3 feet deep, and you have the recirculating heating system that is built into the floor and the walls, so that it maintains a certain temperature to the water, and that's a lot of water to heat. And so if you do it in a typical fashion, like in a swimming pool, it's very, very expensive. In this way, we can use an electric 100-gallon water heater for each of the ponds, the grow out ponds. And so uh, we can hook those and make those completely solar. And so that saves a tremendous amount of money just on the energy costs of heating these ponds alone. And the only time when we'll have to throw in outside utility to bump up the heating, because it's the winter months, to add in a second or a third 100-gallon electric water heater to keep the temperatures that we need to maintain in these grow out ponds, and also the warmer water that needs to be upstairs in the nursery tanks before they transfer to the grow out ponds. And so there's a lot of work involved. We have about 6 more months of completely laying out and constructing, doing the build out of the project here, and this is with permits, and so it's a real business, and once it's all put together, it's very cheap, very easy to maintain, because your only real expense is water, and you're not using any more water than a typical for a family of four household would use in a year. So the water is filtered and recirculated and cleaned, so that and then put back to its proper pH, which is an alkaline. 8.0 is typical for a good water pH. For white shrimp and for shrimp, they need alkaline water. And then also on top of that, it needs to be soft water. So we have water softeners involved, and that adds the salts to the water that are necessary to control disease in these ponds. And so there's a lot of engineering that goes into this, and a lot of planning and redundancies that have to be built in so that you are guaranteed long-term success and very few problems. And then one of the nice things about this is that in this particular model, everybody talks about these uh, uh, home projects, the tiny home projects, and tiny villages and everything. Well, you know, one of the biggest thing that we had that people constantly bring up is that, you know, these villages for homeless people, for low income, for no income people, are going to cost a tremendous amount of taxpayer dollars. And we have to find a way to make them self-sustaining. And so this is one of the foundations that I'm incorporating into one of my foundations, my one of my sites that I'm in charge of. And I've had this property. It's a 20-acre site here in the Bay Area. In fact, if you go back, you'll actually see my video on that out here in East Oakland. I still have possession of that, and that's one of the projects that I'm going to be building out into a homeless village. And this particular business is one of the elements that help fund that long term and make it sustainable, and also an opportunity for those folks that live in that homeless um, village. It's not going to be a homeless village because they're going to all have homes there, and so, but this makes it sustainable so that's a not this particular project, this particular model is not, repeat, is not any burden on the taxpayers, because number one, we don't ask for any taxpayer monies whatsoever. We are self-sustaining. We have this model, and it brings in just this particular model that I'm using will bring in after tax income of one over $1 million. In fact, I done the math, and it comes out to a profit of $1,036,800 annually with the model that I'm currently putting in place. And so, and that's harvesting 1,800 pounds of prawns, shrimp a week. And so the weekly profit off of that is $21,600 per week, if and when things go right. And here's the nice thing is that when we get to a certain point, which is 180 days, we now become self-sustaining. Self-sustaining because now we're going to take the female prawns, which are loaded with eggs, and we're going to be removing those females and putting them into the breeding rooms, and then taking a certain amount of males at the same age, and then they become the breeding stock for the future. And they're only replaced once they get to a certain age, and they're no longer prolific in producing eggs and larvae. And so they end up joining the harvest, so to speak, later down the road. But their life will just be about, you know, making babies and eggs for the business and continuing on. And so the breeding rooms will be the core and the heartbeat of the operation, moving into the future, and saving $3,800, because right now for a 250,000 larvae will cost $3,800, and so that's $3,800 back into the profit centers for the aquaculture center. And then also this aquaculture requires around the clock care. And so this is an opportunity for the residents of these low income, no income communities can learn how to create their own aquaculture farm and become self-sustaining themselves, because there's plenty of room. Like I said, just in Los Angeles alone, this one model that I'm duplicating does not does not sell outside of Los Angeles, and they make millions of dollars annually, and they're in their fifth year of operation. So it's a very successful model that I've chosen to duplicate, and um, it's going back to what I started with when I was very young. Because when I was very young, I was looking for opportunities, a way to make money, uh, as an eight to 10 year old, and by the time I was 10 years old, I was breeding Siamese fighting fish betas, and I was one of the biggest suppliers to all of the pet stores in the Bay Area for Siamese fighting fish, because I had such a wide variety of them, and I was making $100 a week as a 10-year-old. So that's not too bad. And that's because my parents wouldn't allow me to have a paper route also. So I had to find other ways to make money. That was one of the ways that I used to make money. And that $100 was my profit after deducting all the expenses, such as the pumps, the feed, the food, the water, the chemicals, the electricity, everything, deducting all of that out, and I was still making $100 a week selling betas. And so I eventually ended up um, growing large koi out in the backyard. I had put together a 600-gallon pond out there, and I was growing out koi and making big money on koi fish at the time, because I was buying them very small and wholesale, because I worked in the industry for a short time, and I was buying them wholesale, bringing them back to my home, growing them out, and making sure that my aquaculture fish raising was successful, and the fish were healthy, and they were unique, and stood out. And so did okay with that also. So again, I'm just going back to my early childhood, where aquaculture did very, very well for me, and I anticipate that this will do very well moving into the future, because it sets the foundation and the income for these communities, these low income, zero income communities. And it doesn't have to be just one operation, it can be several operations in the same community, because there's, like I said, plenty of room for growth, and there's a high enough demand, not only locally, even outside of our area, for fresh live product. Thank you for joining me today. Oh, and here's the best benefit: overstock, things that don't sell, we can also write off and donate as food to the different charities around Oakland and the Bay Area. So these become uh, food products, even if we don't sell them. We process them, clean them, freeze them, and then distribute them free of cost to food distribution, such as Glide Memorial, perhaps in the future. But there will be places that we can help, uh, such as an Oakland homeless shelter right here called Crossroads in East Oakland, because they could benefit from free seafood, which they never have anyway. But then that's one of the side benefits of this. Or even if there's a sudden die off in for whatever reason, long as the product hasn't been deemed safe, it hasn't been tainted or with any toxins, it is safe to eat. So we can process those, donate those to shelters and food distribution centers, and write that off, rather than a loss, write that off as a donation to the community. So a lot of good benefits there. So not only does a zero income, low income community benefit with financial stability, and the nice thing about this, it is a consumable. consumables are what you want as your foundations. Because people buy them, they use them up, and they come back for more. And that's the beauty of aquaculture, because it is number one, self-sustaining. It is repeat business through consumables. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.